know. Who's going to do the intro?
Without Stoney here, I guess. Shall I do it?
Yeah, but if you want to do it, I'll do the next one. But you've got to do your best Stoney impression.
All right. Let's see what I've got. Hang on. Hey, dweebazoids. Welcome to the LBP, the Large Blast podcast. Get yourselves down to the betting stops and get your dollar out for your favorite deity. Because tonight we're doing World Cup of Gods. How was that?
That was pretty good. What did you think about that, Welshy? Oh, sorry, I forgot that Stoney wasn't even here.
Classic.
Very convincing. Yeah.
That's right, folks. You've tuned into the Large Blast podcast, and we are talking about the best of the best gods later in the show. But first, Matt, we like to get started with a little something we call hobbies going on or hobby progress. It changes every week, doesn't it, when he's in charge?
Yeah, we've noticed, Stoney. We've noticed.
What have you been up to, mate?
It wasn't actually, in the real world, it's not actually been that long since we recorded the last episode. At least that's what it feels like. And I'm still working on the Black Templars. So that is basically all the hobby I think I've been doing. They're kind of, the little squad is kind of done. I need to do some dusting on them.
What squad is it you're doing? The novitiates? Or
no, it's the 5 intercessors from the 9th edition box set, the close combat ones. You know, the first Primaris with chainswords.
Okay. The assault intercessors,
yeah, assault intercessors. I just did them just to kind of check my recipe.
Nice.
And I've been painting the Empress Champion at the same time, basically just kind of checking that I'm happy with it on the intercessor and then doing the same process on him.
I guarantee you it's easier than mine, which is to spray with Wraithbone and then do 5 coats of Black Templar just so I can have the pauldrons white.
I don't know. Mine is pretty mad. I base coat them black and then I assemble them and then I touch up the black and then I zenithal highlight in a grey and then I do a zenithal highlight in white, which is so like mad because it's a black model.
Yeah, and then
so they're like
black
white
contrast back over.
No, I don't do contrast. I do a glaze of, so I mix a glaze medium with Abaddon black and then I paint the Abaddon black onto them so that
that's sound kind of more mental than
that's kind of highlighted, and then I do like 4
You've chosen to do this. Mine was an initial mistake. I sprayed everything.
Yeah, I've chosen to do that.
How am I going to get around this?
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I've been doing a couple of things. I had a game against Ultimate Jeff, big fan of the show, on the weekend. We played like a really thematic game that was good fun. So we set up a table long ways and set up the terrain. So it was like increasingly more terrain towards his end. So it was like my Tyranids were assaulting an actual fortress. Yeah. So we had no objective in my half, 3 objectives in the center, and then 1 objective in his. And the aim was for me to just get as many Tyranids into the castle as I could, knowing that he's got like a super shooty list and I was going to lose a lot on the way. And we initially said, because of that, when we get to turn 4, I'll bring a load of points back. So I'd match whatever points he's got remaining. But actually, at turn 4, it wasn't so bad that we needed to do that. We played it out and he won. It's a kind of overwhelming firepower, especially from those whirlwinds. But it was really nice. It was just really good fun to just not fiddle around with cards or trying to win with fancy tricks or anything. It was just, I'm running at you. I'm going to get as close as I can. And you're going to have to take out as many of me on the way as possible. So it's really cool.
I think that sounds good. That sounds really fun. I've always wanted to play games like that, and ones where you're not necessarily equal. Yeah. Like you say, like you had possible reinforcements on turn 4, but like you could play a game that one player is twice as much stuff and just the other person is some sort of defender or has another advantage.
Yeah, it has I basically didn't have much cover at all in my half of the thing, which was nice. And it was good for me because we played it at my house. So for the first time ever, I got every gaunt out.
Oh, right.
So I had 100 gaunts on the table.
Yeah.
It was just great fun. Something I'd never bother carrying to an event or a tournament. So that was good. And then painting wise, I've want a break from the Tyranids. So I've sprayed up my Paragon war suits. Sisters of Battle.
Oh yeah,
the baby carriers.
I magnetized mine a year ago.
Yeah,
and they've just been left. I just think they're kind of. It's one of those models that I just don't want to paint.
Yeah, I sprayed them. I really like putting them together because I like the idea of.
Oh, they were so then fiddly. I put them together. I was magnetizing them.
I'm glad you said that because it was like Warhammer hard mode. I've never had so many bits in like one leg, but I put them together, and now you're right. Now I've seen how detailed they are. I can't really be asked with painting them. Picking out all of that metal trim, man. It's sad times. I hadn't noticed it on my Emperor's Children because I do it with the lead belcher undercoat, and then everything's contrast, so it's not too bad.
Yeah.
But picking out metal trim that's not joy, is it? That's the whole different ball game.
Finance, cutting into technology. Accurate information, it's the Large Blast podcast news. Hear every episode.
All right, Welshy. Well, I'm really glad that it's just the two of us because at this point, I think Stoney would give up. He would walk off set. We are looking at a Joy Toy Rogel Dawn. Oh, baby.
So there's a lot of joy in his toy, isn't there? And his big vibrating chainsaw.
I mean, when I first saw this on the internet, it's all right. I mean, it's a big Primarch. It's cooler than just a normal Space Marine. I mean,
it's cool. It's cool to see a big figure like this. It's interesting because this is the first 30k, or is it? Maybe he's coming back. Who knows? This is the first big 30k Joy Toy, I think. And this is very much the 30k Primarch model, isn't it? Forge World.
I mean, we'll
talk about that in a second.
Oh, you're so right. I mean, that could be a whole range of 18 models straight there.
Just make them bigger. Everyone likes it bigger.
Yeah.
Especially if you want more joy from your toy.
And not just 18. Now that we're seeing the slightly demonic versions of the 30k Primarchs in 30k, that's another 18.
Buddy. Yeah. Printing money on the Joy Toys.
This is I don't know how tall this is, but it's
all right. It looks Dawnish, it's not as bad as some of the models we saw when they first started doing action figures. But we've got to talk about that quiff, that hairdo. Oh my god. There's no way Rogel Dawn would be sporting that much.
He kind of looks like the guy from Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Spike. Yeah. He does. He does look like Spike. You can just imagine him in that terrible British accent that he does.
Oh yeah. It's terrible. Oh my god.
Incredible. I'm not sure about that hair. I feel like he'd have something to say about that. If he walked out of the hairdressers like that. He wouldn't let it get that long in the first place. He's like a flat top American general buzz cut. Yeah. Sure. There's no style in Rogel Dawn. But I won't be getting one. And I doubt you will be either. I'm down with digging in the crates and I'm MVP. Well, get on your knees, Matthew, because the next bit of news is bowing down to your new Necron Overlord. It's just model came out of nowhere, quite literally, the other day. Just a new Overlord sculpt, and I think it's brilliant. The way from the sides, it like clearly phasing from the little green squares into reality. Like his body doesn't exist in the whole middle segment.
Yeah, this was in one of their emails. It did kind of come out. Yeah, they keep stuff in their back pocket, don't they? It's much cooler than that model. And this is a model that, like you say, because it's sort of. The model captures the moment in time that it's being created in front of you, and actually the model looks better from the side because you can actually see it. You can see it a little clearer, but I mean, he's stood on a tactical rock, but let him off for that. But it is really cool. Yeah. I mean, the pose as well. The pose is brilliant. I mean,
he's sitting up out of a crypt or a coffin.
Yeah. I was going to say something sort of Egyptian
folded across his chest.
Yeah, mummification. Yeah, it's cool.
I think it's great, and they just previewed one rule with him that essentially gives you like a teleport shunt. Do you remember how
cool. Yeah,
the wraiths used to just blast 6 inches forward through anything as if it wasn't there? He basically does that for your unit, which is great. Yeah, I'll be getting one of these. I also think it's a big fuck you to 3D printing. We can say that without Stoney here. Look at all these things we can say about 3D printing. We should do a whole episode on 3D printing and why it sucks.
Maybe we should. Yeah,
it's just so intricate.
I think we can see that in a lot of I'm sure we've spoken about this before. A lot of the stuff in the design queues for Games Workshop at the moment are just creating stuff that the model is just a level above what you can 3D print. Like we were just talking about with the sisters' war suits, like the plastic cables that are in like 3 parts that you have to glue together to go on the gun, and
like the first WoW model of the Necron range, the Void Dragon, who we'll be talking about later when that came out. Because that was the first thing we saw that was like this phasing in and out of reality.
Yeah.
I will have one of these on order as soon as it comes out, I imagine.
Broke boys don't deserve no pussy. I know that's right.
Welshy, can you guess what I've been up to this week?
You told me a little bit earlier, but have you snuck something else in?
Yeah, I've been making my Christmas lists. I've been trying to find what I want Father Christmas to give me for Christmas. And
presumably there's a website that Games Workshop has that you can store all of that information on.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's what I thought until this week. The week I decided to do my Christmas list. There's no website, and there's no Forge World website. And because obviously I wanted Father Christmas to bring me a Titan.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And then I ended up on the Games Workshop website, and it was interesting. It was worse than the app.
Oh man, this website. So we're talking about the new Warhammer website. Gone are the days of the bright yellow and red. Gone are days of Forge World, it would seem. It's all been rolled into one company called Warhammer. We'll talk about whether we think that's good or bad in a minute, but let's just focus on the website itself for now. Because I saw a new website, I thought, great, let's check it out. And it was dog shit. Honestly, it was awful. Worse than like app version 0.01. I found it impossible to navigate. I was on my phone, which is what it was supposed to be optimized for. And it was just endless scrolling. I logged on and there wasn't a single picture on like the loading screen or the front page of like anything cool happening in 40k or Age of Sigmar or any of their IPs. It was just a bloke in a grey shirt rolling some dice. Now I know at the end of the day, Warhammer is just blokes rolling dice. But you used to log on and you'd be like, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. And all I saw was the word Warhammer and a man rolling a dice. And I thought, this is just some of the worst marketing I've ever seen.
Yeah. I mean, we had long conversations about this on our group chat, and it's just weird. It's just weird. It's not. It's a very contemporary website, although I think it's about 5 years out of date. There's a lot of style, not a lot of substance, and it's kind of a good website if you have a business that's presenting itself as a business. It's not a good website as an online shop. It doesn't. It's really, really bad. I mean, I've only spent about 10 minutes on it because I didn't want to spend any more time on it. That says everything. But I just the way to find models, and I don't know. Maybe it's been updated, but I then try to find specific Forge World models, and it just couldn't. And there's like an Imperial Army section. Why there isn't like a Titan section within that? So I don't know where the Titans are. You have to kind of Google them.
Army and then Battlefield role currently as we're recording this. So you can't go, I want Space Marines and I want troops.
So what does
you can just put in troops?
What do parents
and then
do?
you get all of the troops from all of the armies that exist in 40k, which is mad. And like when I logged it wasn't finished. The website wasn't finished. The images were low res. And the best function that I absolutely loved, I remember we talked about it for ages when do you remember when 360 rotation pictures were first a thing on the website? And you could twist it, and it was the coolest thing ever. That's all gone.
Has that gone?
They said it's coming back.
But it
wasn't ready for it being launched.
I do genuinely use that. Whenever
to paint the back of models, when I've got a model, because you don't often get a picture of the back in the box.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you can see sort of what somebody else has done, get some ideas.
Yeah,
and they used to have the list feature, which actually I used, and just to kind of have a running list of stuff that I'd like to get, and there's a couple of other lists as well, and they've gone. But Forge World, I mean, this was Stoney's prediction. I don't know, a long time, like a year ago. He said, "I've heard that Forge World's going."
Yeah. I don't know if he was joking, because we were saying that lots of things were missing. Because I'd gone up to games to Warhammer World, and the shelves were basically empty. And we were talking about people robbing Primarchs, and he said, "I don't think they're restocking because it's going, but it's clearly now been rolled into this." I think there's an upside. If we can pull one upside from the new website, it's that you can now order Forge World models to your local shop, which you couldn't always do, as far as I'm aware. So that's good. But even the way they've implemented that, they're just in amongst the models, and they just say 15 plus, I think, which must be, it's almost like they only differentiated them because they legally have to, because it must be a resin thing. I reckon you can't sell resin to under 15s, or the resin Forge World use, because it's dangerous for breathing in. But like, they don't put, at least they could at least have the old Forge World logo in the top left, something that makes you want to spend 4 times more than the tank you just looked at. Imagine scrolling through, especially for like guard stuff, and you're scrolling through the Rust variants, and suddenly the next one's twice the price because it's got some resin cannon. I don't know what bloody Forge World tanks are, but I just thought that was bad as well, to not have it as a separate section at the bottom of an army that's like, these are models that you can also get that are made in a different way. Or even to highlight, someone else made the point, if you were going to design a new website for Warhammer now, and you weren't just thinking about money, there's no indication as to which models are legends. So if you don't know, if you're new to the game, or you're a parent that knows, "Oh, my son collects Tyranids,"
right,
you could buy them a load of models that they can't play in the majority of games, because they don't have a functioning rule set, which again I thought was kind of bad. Like, why wouldn't you introduce, well, I know why you wouldn't, because it doesn't matter to you whether the kid can use them as long as someone buys them. But yeah, I was disappointed with this. It was very much style over substance. I used to sit, like, when I had a spare 5 minutes, I commented this on their thing because I'm English and I like to moan by commenting. If I had 5-10 minutes spare, if I was just sat waiting for a film to begin at the cinema or something, I'd just jump on the Forge World website and scroll through it and look at all the
I
cool
would go on the
models
Forge World website all the time. Yeah.
Just because it was the joy to look through these models that I know I wasn't going to buy any of them, but just to be like, sometimes you come across one, you'd be like, I didn't even know that existed. I've never seen that before. Yeah. But this is not going to make me do that. That's for sure.
No.
So Matt, I know you like your Imperial Guard women, big, muscly, sweaty, with shaven heads. You're going to be delighted, because you not only got them, but you've got them covered in alien goo and ichor in the new Black Library book, Death Worlder. It's a Catachan versus Tyranid Black Library book, which is cool, I think. It's like a matchup we haven't. I like it when they do weird matchups, basically.
And there's been more rumors of more guard stuff.
Could this be the Catachan resculpt we've wanted for ages?
Yeah, I mean, they predate the old Cadians.
Yeah.
And I think they'd be pretty popular. And there's been more recent Catachan models, like the lady figure that I got, the limited edition thing.
I've got
but there's been the odd one, and then there was the guy who was
with the cigar.
There's definitely still a demand for them, and they're still a very popular faction on the guard pages. I saw on the guard pages today, someone posted a picture of this book with a load of other books, Black Library books, where the front cover is a female Imperial Guard. And he was sort of saying, like, we're now, it wasn't meant in a negative way. I'm trying to say he said something like, we've got more sisters than the Sisters of Battle, which I thought was quite good. because
that's great though. Like that's one of the things I love about 40k. Bring in like all female like guard squads. It's great.
Yeah, and as we know from the Imperial Guard books going back 20 plus years, they've always had quite important female characters in. So actually, it's not a new thing. The Guard has always been an equal place.
You and me grew up like rewinding through that Starship Troopers scene over and over again when they're all in the shower. I know that for a fact because we've discussed it. So
yeah, if you want to pause the podcast now and watch that scene, then go ahead.
Well, welcome back, sports fans. We're here at the World Cup of Gods, where we're going to draw some of the greatest gods from the 41st millennium and previous and pit them against each other in a battle for the galaxy. So Matthew and I are going to draw 2 gods. We're going to see who we think would win based on some prior lore and knowledge in terms of taking over the galaxy. And it's going to be a knockout competition, World Cup style. It's got nothing to do with football, though, folks. Don't worry, because you're all dweebs and no one does sports and Warhammer, at least that I know. So, first draw, I have drawn from the Magic Pot, Tzeentch, Lord of Change, bringer of fun times and blueness. Who have you drawn?
Oh, it's the Big E! Straight out the gates. It's the Emperor of Mankind.
So we're classing him as a god, I assume, for this. We're not going to spend the next hour debating whether he is. We've done that enough. Yeah. So our first matchup is Emperor today or at 30k? I guess that's the big decision.
I think when we talk about the Emperor, generally we're talking about the Emperor when he's sort of quote unquote alive. So 30k. So he's a living, breathing, Tzeentch walking
versus the Emperor.
Yeah, this is interesting because this is obviously the 4 Chaos Gods are like his big. All of them are like his nemesis. They call him the the anathema because he is. I mean, we know that he's the 5th Chaos God, but anyway, we won't delve into that. But yeah, so this is a perfect matchup because they hate him, don't they? Tzeentch will hate him.
Absolutely. So in terms of like taking over the galaxy, taking charge, being lead god, these two are going to go about it in very different ways and have attempted to in the past, I suppose.
Yeah. Like
Tzeentch is infiltrating everyone's bog roll and turning it into that bog roll with jokes on, but they're all like Tzeentch themed. Whereas the Emperor is building an army and going about it a good old fashioned foot slogging. Yeah,
but as we've delved into many times, we know that there's a far different side of the Emperor that is a bit more like Tzeentch, like plans within plans and willing to turn his back on close individuals and not siblings but children, and I don't know. I mean, the Emperor has succeeded in a far greater feat on his own, fighting all 4 Chaos Gods than one Chaos God against the Emperor. The Imperium basically exists because of the Emperor, even 10,000 years after 30k.
I mean, that's true. If you see Horus as Chaos Undivided, which he is, infused with the power of all 4 gods, even though there is inter-rivalries at the time, it is all of the gods teaming up.
Yeah.
And they don't take over the galaxy.
Yeah.
So if you look at it that way, it is the Emperor, but you could potentially, depends what you class as doing it by himself, because couldn't have done it without the Primarchs. He couldn't have just infiltrated the minds of enough people.
But the Emperor created the Primarchs, so they are his creation. Yeah. But then I was going to say perhaps the fact that the Emperor is on the Golden Throne is part of a Tzeentch plan.
Yeah. Well, he certainly changes, doesn't he, between 30k and 40k.
40k and 30k, yeah, there's changes. But I don't know. For my money, the Emperor, I mean, even in 40k, he is I know we're kind of talking about him when he's living, breathing, walking, but even when he's on the golden throne in 10,000 years later, he's been on a life support machine for 10,000 years, but yet his will is manifest across the galaxy. We've spoken about the Emperor's Taros.
He's more of a god at 40k, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the other gods.
Yeah, that's true.
He is the only, I think, out of the god things that we have in the draw, he's the only corporeal being. That is corporeal the right word? I think so, as in having a corpse. He's not he's not just a spirit. He requires full interaction with the real world in order to do things. But then in 40k, if we believe he is functioning, then he's doing so solely from the warp.
The warp, yeah.
He's not like writing letters and posting them out to people or like getting on the phone.
No.
He's literally commanding people from the warp. And in that sense, maybe he's weaker than Tzeentch. But what you're saying about Tzeentch, the role of Magnus is to stop the Emperor. Essentially, outside of Horus, the Webway project fails because, in part, of Magnus. And the Webway project was what the Emperor was going to use to take the galaxy. He wanted to break into the Webway. And Tzeentch used that against him. So, in that sense, Tzeentch wins. But it's a tough call.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, how old is Tzeentch?
I don't know the direct origin of when the other three Chaos Gods. We know exactly when Slaanesh happens.
Yeah.
I think the other Chaos Gods are there. Part of what I was looking at was saying that it's not until races felt fear that was to do with the Nightbringer. Once you get into like the old ones, Aeldari, Necrontyr lore, the suggestion is that chaos gets fed by the younger races becoming aware of things like fear and the greater emotions. And it's that being kicked out of Eden that creates the chaos.
Right.
But I think, there's also a lot of crossover with the Chaos Gods and some of the other ones we'll talk about.
I'm looking at my notes for another god. Another Chaos God, who is apparently the oldest one. And he appears in medieval Europe. Or there's some link to medieval Europe on Earth, which would mean the Emperor is older than the Chaos Gods.
Yeah, but the Chaos. No, that can't be true.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I've written in my notes. Apparently, but this is what I've read. Because
it's very
I don't know why,
and we're going to come across this lots, like the god origin stories, because the codices initially were all written quite separately from each other, and all kind of within their own lore bubbles. Having to bring together these quite conflicting god laws is tricky, I think. But I'm just going to straight up say I think Tzeentch would have beaten the Emperor in a god off. In a god off, we're talking about just god power. We're not talking about the ability to build armies, and we're talking about just influencing via god power rather than constructing and telling beings to do something. Who could influence the more people simultaneously by themselves without the use
Emperor,
of Vox?
The Emperor can make people, there's in 30k, like he goes to Mars, and the whole Martian priesthood that believe they have their own separate religion to Earth, and he lands on Mars and is like, I'm your god, actually, and everyone's like, yeah, all right, yeah, we'll go along with that. and with Mars, most of the worlds that he finds and takes follow him.
But he's not convinced a single Eldar. He's not convinced like a single Tau. He's not convinced a single Orc to treat him as a god. I know Tau have joined the Imperium for monetary.
No, I mean, Imperium won't let them.
They think they've joined.
Get shot in the head.
No, but they help out,
Yeah. But yeah, I
think because if you really had the power of a god, you wouldn't have to destroy the races you came across. You wouldn't have to do Xenocide if you could control them.
No, I don't know. I mean, Tzeentch does that too.
But I will go with all four gods were necessary to team up against him. So let's put the Emperor through. We've got more Chaos Gods to come back and avenge Tzeentch later on. So that's a tough one to start with, but the Emperor goes through. So Matt, who have you drawn for the next game?
Let me have a rustle. Oh God. It's Mephetet Ran, the Deceiver.
Oh, Catan, Star God. So I have drawn Kegarak, the Great Fool, the Laughing God. This is the trickster god of the Harlequins, the one with the cool face mask and the big old collar. So that's two trickstery gods, right? Because Deceiver is the kind of trickster god of the Catan. We should probably explain what Catan are too.
Yeah, Catan are the Necron Star. Well, they're not Necron Star gods. They become Necron Star gods. They're a separate race, aren't they?
Yeah.
But
they're like amorphous beings. They're like farts, space farts that feed on stars farts when they're found, right? They eat stars, and they're basically just pure energy.
And they're very, very old. The Necrons are millions of years old. The original Necron tier race are millions of years old, but they're even older. And the Deceiver, I mean, it's funny that we've drawn both of these together. It's complete fluke.
It's because we just put him out. He's putting all the tricksters together. He's like, well, I'm gonna make sure one goes through if I'm out.
Yeah. And so the Deceiver, even the other Catans were kind of, they made him feel about a bit uncomfortable around him because he was kind of a bit untrustworthy, hence his name. And he has something to do with the biotransference, with the Necron tier being tricked into the bodies of the Necrodermis.
Yeah, so he's one of the Catan gods, they're in this fart state, right? And the Necron tier, who are the alive, not metal Necrons,
the original race,
convince the Catan space farts to take on like a material form and enter like Necrodermis so that they can interact. And then they use them against the old ones, who are this weird gods. We haven't even included any old ones because we know so little about them. But the Necron tier use the now material Catan to destroy the old ones. And then they turn on the Catan. The Catan aren't happy about it. And I think that's where the Deceiver comes in, right? And as punishment, convinces the Necron tier that it would be best for them in order to survive getting irradiated by their star if they turned full Terminator and went to sleep for millennia.
Yeah.
So that's his kind of big Deceiver thing, which is why when you play him in your army, you get a redeploy.
Yes,
it's almost the same as tricking an entire race into becoming robots.
Even though he's just a shard, and we should say they get tricked by the Necrons who revolt, and they get broken into shards. So the godly power is sort of split up, and the modern, as you play them on the board, it's not the actual god; it's part of the god. So we're playing them turned up to 11 as full.
We're going to imagine them for the sake of this as all of the pieces, no shards, full pieces. So we've got the Deceiver. Kegarak is quite cool because he's still alive. He's like a full Eldar god that, as far as people are aware, is still alive. He's hiding in the webway, and the Harlequins believe so much that he's still alive that they don't wear spirit stones. It's why you never see any like spirit stones bulging out of their asses when they're wearing those tight lycra suits. They believe that Kegarak will grab their souls when they die and prevent Slaanesh from getting them, and they don't need to take any precaution. Like not putting like condoms on. They just don't care about it. They've got Kegarak to save them, and it'll be fine. But he used to punish them, like his whole thing, and why he didn't fall to Slaanesh in the fall apparently is because his whole deal was that he used to punish pride. So the whole pride before a fall, he'd be the one that trips you up. He's like anti-pride, which is why Slaanesh couldn't ever convert him. So he runs away and hides in the webway. He fights one of the gods we'll talk about later on. So he has a fight with Cain in the kind of pantheon lore. So I think now an Eldar full god would take out a shard of the Deceiver.
Yeah, definitely.
Full star god versus trickster god? I don't know.
I don't know, man. I mean, he helped to deceive an entire race into turning themselves into robots for millions of years.
Yeah, whereas Kegarak just makes them wear lycra and do funny dances.
And he doesn't eat stars.
He doesn't eat stars. As far as I'm aware, he doesn't eat stars, Kegarak. No.
To be able to eat stars, I mean, that's insane amount of power.
I think this goes.
Yeah.
This goes to the Deceiver on full power, doesn't it? It's a shame because Kegarak's a cool god, and it's cool that he still exists. I'd love to see an avatar of him. You think how amazing the Harlequin models are?
Oh, yes.
Imagine they brought back like an avatar of Kegarak, or just a Kegarak model. That would be really cool. It's said that he wanders amongst the troops wearing the shiniest and shimmeriest of Lycra, but who knows? Should we draw another game?
Yeah.
So who have you got, Matt?
I have Unid. It's another Eldar god, but it's a really, really new one. It's probably the youngest one we've got in this list. Inead.
Inead.
Yeed.
All right, I'll draw mine. Let's see who she's going up against. Oh, it's not a he or a she. It's a they. It's the newest of the Chaos gods. It's a battle for the ages. Brand new Eldar god Inead versus brand new Chaos god.
That's an interesting matchup. Inead is, I mean, it's so new in the real world. She's only about 5 years old. Sometimes called the Whispering God, apparently. She is the god, the Aeldari Eldar god of the dead. So that's cool. That's sort of, that gave me images of the Day of the Dead, the pretend festival from Mexico. And
she rides a cool purple whirlwind around. I know that much about her. She's got a lady friend with peacock feathers in her hair and a cap.
That's her avatar. So because she's so new, he, she, whatever it is, I'll refer to her as she at the moment, but she has yet to actually manifest because she's so young. She hasn't gained enough power to fulfill the purpose, which is to destroy Slaanesh. This is a perfect matchup.
Oh, so her purpose is to destroy Slaanesh.
Yeah, and because to free the Aeldari species from the Chaos God's curse.
Right. Well, there was a people that could free themselves from Slaanesh, and that was the Eldar. If they weren't fucking each other so hard and dripping their cum into the webway, as we've discussed many times, because Slaanesh wouldn't have been born. So this is a kind of, I guess, Inead isn't just death. She's kind of vengeance at the same time against
vengeance
Slaanesh.
For death. Yeah.
But Ivrain, who she goes around with and kind of draws on this innate power, is bringing people back from the dead.
There's
breaking people out of spirit stones.
Something about spirit stones, yeah.
But there's also talk that, I mean, you only have to take one look at the avatar of Inead bloody model and go, that's Slaaneshi. She's Slaanesh. This is Slaanesh tricking. This is Slaanesh versus Slaanesh. I don't care how pro Eldar you are, how pro peacock feathers you are. This is Slaanesh putting a fast one, being like, oh yeah, break them all out of their spirit stones. I'll look after them.
Yeah.
All the while she's tormenting their souls and their lifeless bodies.
Because Slaanesh eats Eldar souls, isn't she?
It's her favorite kind, favorite type of soul. Yeah. That's why the Eldar have the spirit stones, as I mentioned. I mean, when they die, they get trapped in the stone and they get put in the infinity circuits in the craft worlds and just go round in loops until they get put in like a Wraith Knight
war suit or something.
Yeah, and they need to go to battle.
I mean, there's not really much contest because Inead is so young. She hasn't formed properly in the Immaterium. Slaanesh is 10,000 years old. Yeah, has all the dirty experience.
There's just no way Inead now beats Slaanesh.
No.
Could she be a useful force for the Eldar if she's not actually corrupted by Slaanesh anyway? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sure bringing back all the Eldar that are in infinity circuits would help, but she's not going to beat Slaanesh, is she?
And I was going to say for the Imperium as well, but then I don't know whether the Imperium would have to be very careful about allowing the Eldar to kind of come back to life and get more powerful. Do they use the Eldar to help remove Slaanesh from the game?
There's one person that Ivrain can bring back to life, and that's Little Gilliman.
Yeah.
She can fill Little Gilliman right up. That's what I've heard.
So I think we have a winner. I think we have a winner.
Yeah. So Slaanesh goes through, absolutely destroys Inead. Okay. Next up, who have you drawn, Matthew?
Oh, it's Mork.
Who have I drawn? Oh,
No.
It's only bloody Gork.
No way.
A
This is a
matchup
fix.
of all time. Gork versus
This is very
Mork.
interesting. So these are the orc gods.
They're big and they're green. I believe that I've got Gork and he is brutally cunning.
And I've got Mork and he is cunning but brutal.
Well, it's going to be a fight between cunning brutality and brutal cunning. That's for sure.
It made me think of Robin Williams. Robin Williams, the actor who played Mork in that.
And Mindy.
Mork and Mindy. Yeah, who was supposedly a Warhammer fan.
Maybe he got the name. Imagine Mork and Mindy.
Oh, yeah.
The name came. He suggested that as a name. We'll never know.
Actually,
God bless him.
I think he may have been into orcs. He's the kind of orky
orc
kind
player,
of,
isn't he?
Yeah.
You're not gonna walk in and find him playing custodians, are you?
No.
He's not going to be there like with 7 models. He's going to be making noises and screaming war at you
and shooting your army up with bubble chuckers.
Oh yeah, he's going to love a bubble chucker.
Yeah.
So now I'm just imagining 2 green Robin Williams fighting each other.
Yeah.
Like changing, like in the Aladdin scene where he changes the genie into the various things.
I mean, this is probably what it's going to come down to. Yeah.
I mean, they're just going to fight and there's no way to stop them. There's not going to be a winner here.
No, there is. The orcs win. The orcs always win.
Orcs always win.
Yeah.
Because they're having a great time watching.
Yeah.
Maybe the crowd wins.
Yeah. Well, because they've been entertained.
They're enjoying it. I tell you who would win if these two are really fighting based on like orc psyche. Gazgul Fracker wins this.
Yeah.
Because he is the prophet of Gork and Mork, right?
Yeah.
And if these two are busting it up in whatever weird green version of the warp orc psyche goes into, he's just getting charged and charged and charged. And there's only one winner that's going to come out of this, and that's Gaz. His empire's going to grow. His control's going to grow. So I think endless fight, Gork v Mork, and the winner is Gazgul. Gazgul goes through to the next round. Super juiced Gazgul.
And I can't quite remember what was on our list, but just going back to Gork and Mork, they are like the only gods on this list who have their likeness represented so much. I guess the Emperor is represented, but all of the stompers and all the big war machines in the orc armies and the wargs are all
the Gorkanauts and Morkanauts.
Yeah, are in the image of their gods. Yeah,
which is pretty unflattering. They're not like hulky dudes. They're fat,
fat, huge things.
Huge, fat, brick things. And that moon as well. That orc killer moon thing we talked about.
Yeah. Okay.
Weird.
So
I suppose, it's weird because when you think about the chaos gods, you imagine them. The way you picture the chaos gods in your head is actually what the greater demons look like. Like when I think of Khorne, I think of a bloodthirster. When I think of Slaanesh, I think of Keeper of Secrets. But that's not what they look like. I mean, they don't even have a form.
Yeah.
So you're right. I imagine these guys as massive orcs. Cool. All right, next round.
The answer is that Gaz goes through.
Gaz goes through because that's how orc tech works.
Yeah. Ooh, this one feels a bit horrible. Let's see what. No surprises. It's Nurgle. It's a horrible little bit of paper.
The Papa, the Slime Ball, Mr. Smelly, and Mr. Hugs, though.
He
laughs. He's jolly.
Yeah.
Papa Nurgs. Okay, I am drawing for the next game. It's Nurgle versus Isha. Now, Isha is the Eldar god of healing and fertility, harvest, the mother god. So weirdly, and if Stoney was here to give us some esoteric lore, I think we might find more similarities than we expect. But tell us about Nurgle.
Well, yeah. As you say, he's well known for being the god of plague, pestilence, disease. But he's way more interesting than that, because as the cycle of life goes around, he is also in a weird way, he's the god of rebirth, of change. I've always thought Nurgle is sort of the representation of entropy, and sort of the inevitability of the cycle of life. And a lot of his, so I was just doing a little bit of reading up for the characters that we had listed for this episode, and I did find the stuff about him not just being about pestilence and disease quite interesting. And that's where I also read about him coming to birth. He is another one that supposedly comes to being during the Middle Ages. Actually, I think this is the one that mentions European Middle Ages, when there were the Great Plagues in real world history, and that kind of echo in the war.
Historically, though, like, I'm going to call bullshit on that, because you got plagues way before the Middle Ages.
Yeah, that's true.
Huge plagues in the Roman Empire.
Yeah, actually, that's true. but the most well-known plagues are in the Middle Ages. The fact that some of his believers are, it's not about the disease. It's not all about the disease, because that's like the poster of Nurgle. But actually, it's about restoring to life, and how you fall to Nurgle because your life is, you're, say, covered in disease. Your life is really crap. You become a follower of Nurgle, and he kind of gives you new life, because he takes away that pain from the pestilence. It's kind of like, I don't know, someone saying to you, that's just life, mate, carry on.
Decay and rebirth simultaneously, isn't
it? Yeah.
And I'm sure Stoney's told us about a Middle Eastern god called Nogal with an H.
Probably.
Well. It's all to do with this and cycle of rebirth and stuff. But we'll keep it to 40k lore. But yeah, you're right. From decay comes nutrients, comes rot, and that's what mushrooms are. That's why they're so important and they're wonderful.
Maybe he is a big mushroom.
This is like, honestly, we are not setting these draws up today. These are literally coming out like this because Isha has a similar role in fertility and harvest, and whereas she's the mother god, they refer to in the lore of Nurgle as the grandfather, the papa who brings gifts. But she's like the main female god in the Aeldari pantheon. She is the one that inspired a guy called Asurian, who is where the name Asurani comes from for the Eldar. He's their like Zeus, their like top guy, Asurian. We haven't included him in the draw because there's not that much information about him. But she inspired him to draw a barrier between the gods and the mortals. So that's a story that comes up a lot in real life gods and pantheons, for the gods to split themselves and separate themselves away from the mortals. But Cain doesn't listen. So Cain, who will come up at some point, is still fucking around hurting the mortals. And as a result, Isha uses her tears to create the first spirit stones in order to communicate with the now separated mortal realm. And basically Asuran, Eldar Zeus, doesn't like this, finds out that he asked her to she asked him to split them away, and then reneges on it, and he's still talking to them. And he basically captures her and gives her to Cain to torture. And Cain just tortures her for ages in a burning pit, to just lowers her into a burning pit.
I don't know. I think we've had too much Eldar god nonsense. I think Nurgle's probably just sat on her and given her a big disease.
We're coming to that, don't you worry, because it's worse than that. The way this story ends is that Vul, who's the Eldari god of the forge, because loads of this is taken from real pantheons, actually saves Isha in return for building 100 swords. Isn't Eldar lore cool, eh? Right. Builds 100 swords for Cain, rescues Isha, but then shit all goes down with Slaanesh. Slaanesh is born, and when Slaanesh destroys the Eldar, he takes Isha as his prize because she's such a babe. So Slaanesh carries Isha off to his little realm, and Nurgle doesn't like this. Nurgle's like, I'm not happy about that, mate. And Nurgle goes after Slaanesh and steals Isha from Slaanesh. And Nurgle has Isha. Nurgle has Isha.
What, in the Garden of Nurgle?
In the Garden of Nurgle.
Excellent.
In a cage next to his like cauldron of disease. And whenever he thinks he's got like the perfect disease, he tests it out on Isha because of Isha's powers of healing. And if it hurts her, he releases it, and if it doesn't, it goes back to the drawing board.
So this has given me visions, and I don't think this has happened, but has there ever been on Warhammer Plus? There was a Nurgle episode on the Bolt and Chainsword with the Plague Marines, but there was never any Chaos Gods. They should do an animation with one of the Chaos Gods in, like an animation of Nurgle's Garden.
That would be really cool.
Yeah.
Or even cooler, an animation of the whole like Aeldari pantheon god story, because everyone would love that.
No, do a Nurgle story.
I think the long and short of this, though, is that Isha is basically mini Nurgle, and
she's already lost.
Yeah, she's
already a prisoner.
Encaged. This has happened, and Nurgle's imprisoned her. Apparently, she tries to help out every now and then whenever she can get messages or communicate. She teaches people how to heal stuff,
right, and
tries to combat Nurgle's plagues, but she's trapped in the Garden of Nurgle, and she's basically been trapped for most of her life by the she's out.
Nurgle wins this.
Nurgle through.
No, and reading about the Nurgle thing that I found quite interesting is, as the Chaos God, it's the only Chaos God that literally touches every human because of the disease, and so even the loyalists, of which most humans are in 40k, they are touched in some way by Nurgle through their lifetime without knowing it because of disease, death, whatever. And I find that quite interesting.
Yeah, I always imagine, and maybe he is, but in my head, Nurgle's the most powerful Chaos God. Just because he's linked, like you say, to everything. It's an absolute necessity for things to decay and be reborn. Otherwise, there's nothing.
I agree. I think if we come down to that argument, I would make the same argument possibly in the next few rounds. Let's see.
We'll see. Okay, next up, Matthew. Who have you drawn?
It's my personal god. It's the Omnissiah, the machine god.
Well, you better bloody explain what the difference between the Omnissiah and the Emperor is then.
Okay. So you can listen back to our Admech episode we did a while ago, but basically the Omnissiah, aka the machine god, so it's the god that the Adeptus Mechanicus believe is their deity, and it's in all machines, and it's the bestower of all knowledge and technology in the universe. So that's why they the Admech try and find all knowledge and technology in the universe, because it's sort of it's the embodiment of their god. And the idea of the Omnissiah is it's omnipotent, omniscient deity that governs all machinery in the universe.
Okay, well, you cleared up who he is, so let's see who he's going against before you tell us more.
Okay, well, I was gonna explain why he isn't the Emperor. Well, so the answer to your question is that the Emperor goes to Mars and makes the Martian priesthood believe that he is the Omnissiah. He is the representative, the physical avatar of the machine god in our universe. So the Emperor says that's me. I am the physical avatar of the machine god. And most of them,
a little bit like Jesus, listeners, don't get too offended, but it's the same.
Most of them believe that. Over time, people start to not believe that. That's why you get the what's it called, the schism of Mars.
Great word.
The schism, yeah. And I don't know so much about 40k, but there's there's probably always been people who have said, well, maybe the Emperor isn't the Omnissiah. And there's never been it's never been definitive. So the answer to what is the difference between the Emperor and the Omnissiah, I would say, is they've never been definitively, conclusively linked. So
it depends who you are. Some people think there isn't, and some people think there is.
Yeah. So
it's mostly the dark mech
not.
that think there isn't. It's a separate thing, right? The Omnissiah now in 40k is more of a dark mech god. To separate the Emperor so significantly from what you believe in to be the machine spirit and the Omnissiah and knowledge is heretical by Imperial standards.
Yeah.
Isn't that who, like, the disciples of Null, the people who, like, are just out there to get knowledge regardless of what the risk is?
Yeah.
That kind of thought process is because the Omnissiah is distant from the Emperor.
Yeah.
Which is kind of bad. Okay, so who's he up against, this weird version of possibly the Emperor that we don't really know anything about? Okay. He's up against, murder, violence, destruction, war. But it's not Khorne, it's Khaine, Mr. Bloody Fist himself. So Kayla Mensha Khaine, which literally means, I've been doing my Eldar research, can you tell? Bloody-handed murder, which is a kind of real retro, I think, like 80s Games Workshop.
Yeah.
Because he has that heart in his hand. And that's a curse, apparently. So that bleeding fist that he has, he kills a guy called Eldernesh, who's like one of the heroes of Aeldari lore. I guess he's like a kind of Hercules or Jason of the Argonauts type fella. And Khaine brutalizes him and kills him. And then he's cursed by Asuran to have this bleeding hand for the rest of his life. But don't forget, just like with the Catan shards, when we think about playing on the board, Khaine that you would put on the board is also a shard. It is not the full god. So when we're thinking power levels, we need to up it from that guy. He actually defeated the Nightbringer in like one-on-one combat. So he fights the Nightbringer in his material form and destroys the Nightbringer, breaks him into shards. And apparently some of those shards get stuck in Khaine, and that gives Khaine the aspect of the Reaper, which I think is like what the Dark Reapers worship, Morgan.
Yeah.
So he has this like kind of deathness about him. However, when Slaanesh is born, he goes 1-to-1 with Slaanesh, loses to Slaanesh, and Khorne then fights Slaanesh over the like scattered body and remains of Khaine, because Khorne's like, that could be my mate. I like this guy. He's got a bloody fist. He's all about war. He's about murder. But it throws, when I was reading about Khaine, there were some people online kind of hinting, saying that maybe some of these more powerful Eldar gods were actually the old ones. Could the old ones be one and the same as some of the bigger?
That's an interesting theory.
Gods. So this is, Khaine is a big deal, bigger deal than the red dude in the funny hat you see on the board.
That's an interesting idea. I think this is almost a no contest, because if I'm saying that the machine god, the Omnissiah, and I guess you could say they're two separate things, but both of them, if you say that the Omnissiah isn't the Emperor, neither of them exist. The Omnissiah doesn't exist, and the machine god doesn't exist in a way that Khaine exists. They exist they exist in reality. They exist in the warp, and they have avatars in reality. So, but whereas the machine spirit doesn't, it just doesn't.
The Omnissiah almost like, if you take the pursuit of knowledge to its conclusion, is the Omnissiah almost atheism? Are you just believing in science above everything else? Is it the kind of god form of atheism? If your aim is to gather all knowledge, and knowledge is above everything else, and knowledge turns out to be the fact that there aren't gods.
My gut feeling would be to answer that question as no. but I can't formulate an argument.
It's difficult. I think the Omnissiah is one of the coolest things, like the machine spirit. Like, who are you praying to? They're literally like throwing holy water at things and like waving censors around and chanting prayers rather than pressing buttons.
Yeah.
But who is in it? What is any of it too? It's the Omnissiah, if he's not the Emperor, is literally the most. You said Gork and Mork are
but then
representations of orcs.
But
the Omnissiah is nothing. It's completely undefined.
Yeah, exactly. It's a funny thing to put in this list of gods, because it is a god, because Mars and all of the Forge Worlds have their belief system around this, and they have done for thousands of years, and that is essentially, it's at their core being, and yet it doesn't it doesn't exist. It's not real, or maybe it is, but yeah, it's weird, it's nothing.
Now you've got stuff like Vashtor, which isn't a god but is a demon that's kind of representing machinery. Yeah,
it's just more of an idea, I suppose.
Yeah. So Kane goes through is what we're saying, because we can't actually define what the Omnissiah is.
I mean, the machine god is like real world religion, isn't it? Where it's kind of, it's real if you believe it. You can't say that it is real.
Yeah, it's almost like just faith in its purest form. Faith, but belief that your gun is going to work rather than not work, which isn't going to stand up to a man with a bloody fist. So Kane goes through,
who actually is real.
Interesting side point, Kane spelt differently is of course the first murderer, which is where it comes from. Okay, next up, 2 to go in the first round.
It's the mightiest
You're
god of war.
Justify this heavily now, Matthew.
I will justify it.
I had nothing to do with this, listeners.
I've thrown this in because it's the mightiest god of war. It's the lasgun.
We're going to come back to that. Lasgun is going up against, quite rightly, so we can kick it out and stop being so ridiculous, Magladroth, also known as the Catan, the Void Dragon. And we're not talking about Shars.
Yeah.
Go ahead then, Matt. Tell me how your humble Lasgun is going to beat the Void Dragon.
Well, this is what I like. Obviously, as a long-time God player, the power, all these gods are souped up super beings, but the power of the Lasgun, I think, is almost godlike, because it arms the entire Imperial Guard, the Astra Militarum, plus other Imperial Defense Forces, and therefore it is humanity's greatest weapon, most numerous weapon. And don't forget the bayonet as well that you can put on the end of your lasgun. We read about Space Marines saving or not saving planets. We read about planets being lost. For every planet that's lost in the books that we read, there's many that are saved, and they're saved by lasguns, and they've been saved for for thousands of years, for over 10,000 years. And that lasgun, that humble weapon that is used en masse because it's simple to maintain, it uses a form of a proton beam, is easy to recharge. You can also use it as a club as well as mounting your bayonet.
This is all very interesting, Matt, but I'm going to see your lasgun and I'm going to raise you invincible lightning machine army.
Yeah, but can you imagine every lasgun in... What if every lasgun...
I imagine them all melting, turning instantly to slag as the Void Dragon, star-eating god casts his eye over to his invincible army, channeling pure lightning through them.
I don't know.
This is the god of oblivion, destruction, and devastation that also happens to eat stars.
I mean, I think we're probably going to have to put the Catan through, because it is actually a god. But the power of the lasgun is insane if you think about all of those weapons.
Yeah, the thing I'll give you with the lasgun, right, is that the power of the lasgun is to empower the chaos gods, and some of the other gods. The lasgun is responsible for so much death be it the person being shot or the wielder, because he's just been melted by a literal star god, that death and those souls go into the warp to fuel, whether it's Gork and Mork, whether it's Slanesh, Khorne, whatever. Those deaths and suffering caused by the Lasgard empowers the other gods.
Yeah,
and empowers the Emperor by allowing his control of vast areas.
Yeah, it's a tool of the Emperor, I guess.
For sure. But the invincible lightning man goes through, so that's just going to be the case. He also invented the pylons. And interestingly, I didn't know this, that Vol, new favourite god of the Forge for the Eldar, is said potentially to have made the Blackstone fortresses in order to destroy the Void Dragon.
Interesting.
Which is interesting. That's a potential explanation of what the Blackstone fortresses are for, which I hadn't come across before, but they were made to destroy the Void Dragon. The other thing to mention Void Dragon is there a shard on Mars?
Yeah, is that linked to the Omnissiah?
Yeah. Is Mars
the machine
really
god
just a tomb world? That's the real question. Did the Emperor take out a shard of the Void Dragon when he went there?
Yeah.
Read Master of Mankind if you want to know the potential answer. Okay, Void Dragon goes through. Last game, Matt. It's another star god. It's Azagorod, god of suffering, pain, despair, and eating invulnerable saves. It's the Nightbringer. Which means you must have, Matthew.
Blood for the blood god. Skulls for the skull throne. Yeah, it's Khorne. The actual real Khorne.
Oh, this is a good battle. We're talking real Nightbringer. Do you want to know a bit about him and his past?
Yeah.
He's the first Catan to be discovered and the first one to be put into material realms. And he actually was found feeding on the star that was the one that was burning the Necrontyr. So the star that was irradiating the Necrontyr near their home is where they found the Nightbringer feeding on. And he's the first one to get a taste for souls, finds them far more delicious. And as soon as he starts eating souls, is said to have cast his image as fear among all of the other races that existed at the time, apart from the Krork/Orcs, which felt no fear. And that's why he looks like the Grim Reaper, which is a real shoehorn in there, because he is the image of death that everybody sees.
Yeah.
And we see him as humanity sees him as the Grim Reaper, which is cool, I think. So he starts eating people, starts eating souls, and then he's encouraged to start eating Catan because he likes causing pain. And that's possibly a little trick from the Deceiver that starts the Nightbringer eating some of his Catan enemies. But then he gets a taste for Catan. It's also said that he might have been tricked by Kegarak to do it, the laughing god, the Harlequin god we mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
But for some reason, the Nightbringer starts eating other Catan, and he's just like a super dick. Like, I think he's the most evil of all of the gods we've talked about. He has no ulterior motive other than to just cause pain, suffering, and despair. There's no like decay but rebirth. There's no pain but pleasure. There's no anger but release. There's just, I hate everything and I'm going to cause you all pain, and then I'm going to suck up that pain and have a lovely time. He's the perfect Dark Eldar god.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's kind of different to Khorne, because Khorne is famously the blood god, the Lord of Skulls, the chaos god of war, hatred, rage, wrath, blood, but also of martial honor, strength, and murder. So don't just think hate, anger, rage, the desire of destruction and the joy of killing one's enemies, but also think about squaring up to somebody who's much more powerful than you and winning, and martial prowess, and not backing down. Winning uneven fights is like another side of Khorne. It's not just about blood.
He's David and Goliath.
Yes. Where as long as David wins. He is fed by murder, by death in the real world, but he also hates Slanesh, so they have a big hatred because, and also the servants of Tzeentch, but specifically Slanesh, because Khorne, it's all about quick death. So you don't torture people. You win and you kill them. And you
not from whence or how the blood flows, just that it does.
Just flows, And as long as it's a quick death, then that's good. And then that empowers Khorne and it doesn't empower Slaanesh. So way more to Khorne than just blood and death. I think there's another side to Khorne as a god.
There's some kind of release that comes from that's necessary. It's weird that he's like, well, it's not weird really. The overlap between these gods that we've talked about is interesting, isn't it? That you've got Khorne overlapping with Cain in such a strong way. You've got Isha and Nurgle. You've got Slaanesh and I suppose a little bit the Nightbringer, but not really, because Slaanesh has upsides too. There's a pleasure derived from that I don't think the Nightbringer gets. Hence why he always just wants more. But who wins this battle? Like, who's more powerful? This is probably our two highest match, or maybe the Emperor and Tzeentch, but my money's probably on the Nightbringer at full power. But then the Nightbringer's killed by Cain, and if Khorne is able to dominate Cain,
and Khorne, the Nightbringer doesn't exist in the Immaterium.
It's true.
So Khorne can just materialize and get killed and then come back.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the case of all the chaos. I mean, if you're fighting a bloodthirster, he comes back over and over again. Angron comes back every 8 minutes or something ridiculous. I think, but we were talking in terms of, we're not just them fighting each other, were we? We're definitely talking about who could take over the galaxy. And I don't think the Nightbringer's going to do that. Nightbringer would eat the galaxy. I think the Nightbringer would destroy the galaxy faster than Khorne. But I don't think that's the question we're asking. It was who could take the galaxy.
Yeah, I think Khorne would take it.
Yeah, eventually Khorne would also destroy it.
Yeah.
But I think in the process, Khorne controls it, or at least controls half of it to help him do it. Whereas the Nightbringer just eats everything as he goes, like a locust.
Yeah.
Khorne goes through.
I think the Nightbringer could get taken down, but that's Khorne.
Right.
I'm down with digging in the crates and I'm MVP.
Oh, Matt, is that the phone?
Yeah, I think it is.
Better answer it. See who it is. Maybe it's Gilliman pestering us again.
Yeah, I'll get it. Hello, Matthew speaking, Large Blast Podcast. How can I help?
Hello, Matt. Is that young dear sweet Matt?
How you doing, Stoney?
I never thought I'd hear your voice again calling from the distant futures.
I know. How's it going out there?
Oh, it's right. It's not as bad as they say, actually. They say
really?
Grim dark. Yeah, I mean, there's some sweet towel ladies around who've been rubbing up all over my armor.
I should warn you, you're on loudspeaker at the moment.
Oh,
Welshy's here.
I mean, nothing. I've just been doing standard Inquisition, all sort type stuff. So nothing.
Okay.
If you hear any rumors, then it was someone else.
He means he's been playing with their nose hole, I reckon, Matt.
Cut that out. Cut that out for my own safety.
Anyway,
well, we better do a wrestling because we haven't done one for a while.
Oh yeah. While you're here on the phone, let's do it.
Might as well do a classic Large Blast Podcast wrestling.
Okay.
All right. Well, let's draw a couple of names from the wrestling hat. Here we go. First one is the Mask of Slaanesh. Ooh, one of your favorites, Stoney.
Oh, she's got the moves. She's quite a dancer.
And she will be fighting Commander Shadowsun of the Tau Empire, who I think we could all agree will probably lose. But let's talk about it anyway in wrestling. What do you reckon, boys?
Oh well, we've got who we got? We've got Shadowsun and we've got the Mask. Obviously, the Mask is going to come in with some dance moves that might bewilder and bedazzle Shadowsun. I can't imagine Tau's hit the old discotheque very much. She's probably never seen anything like that. If you do the thing with the Charleston type of thing in front of a Tau person, they're like, "What the fuck? What's going on with your knees? Are they switching sides?"
I don't know. I think Shadowson's going to be kind of blown away by the attire. Look at that ruff. It's the first ruff we've had in the wrestling ring.
Pretty fucking good ruff, I've got to be honest with you. But I mean, you say that, but you don't know what's going on under Shadowsun's armor. You don't know. I mean, I've seen some stuff on the internet which suggests she might have all kinds of stuff on under there.
Well, yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, once she peels a couple of those layers of armor off, the internet would suggest to me that she is containing and holding back some quite large appendages. So maybe she's gonna outmask the mask.
I don't know. I mean, you know that not everything on the internet is true, right?
Since when? Since when? When would the internet ever lie to us? What's changed in the 40,000 years since I've been away? I don't remember it being like that.
Oh man.
You haven't got the internet where you are.
Yeah.
Hey,
you haven't got the internet. You're just got a local news sphere, I've heard.
Oh, we just use books again. We've gone back.
And candles. Yeah.
All right. So in terms of fighting style, though, the mask's going to be running straight at her. She's got a sweet body glove. She got like a stick. What weapon has the mask of Slaanesh got? She's got a mask.
Well,
right?
she's got her big claws, her rending claws, obviously, which are pretty, so armor, Slaanesh, stereotypically cuts through armor like butter, doesn't it? And she's got like a stick, the mask, and one face is happy and one face is sad, because there's two different dances she can do. So she like spins the stick around. It's like doing my happy dance, doing my sad dance.
I'm kind of also imagining that like she does like a forward flip, a bit like a harlequin. She's moving a bit like a harlequin in my mind. She's going flipping backwards and forwards, roly-polies in the air. And then as she does that, she opens her legs a bit like a pole dancer. And the orifice area sort of opens and screams like a big Slaaneshi scream comes out, like a sonic scream.
Death queef.
Yeah.
A war queef.
Death queef. Yeah, strength 14, AP -3.
But while she's running and squeezing one out, Shadow Sun is like a stealth genius, right? She's got some stealthy tactics going on her suit and two massive guns. So if she gets a shot off, I'm not sure even the Mask of Slaanesh can face down a double fusion blaster.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to be honest with you. This sounds like one of the classic, you do a big kind of fancy dance in front of me and I have a massive gun kind of scenario where I kind of feel like, you've heard of the expression, don't bring a knife to a gunfight, right? Well, don't bring some dance moves and a crazy mask, because that's even less effective.
So you're thinking, the full Indiana Jones, fancy dancing, little queef, showing her the mask.
I reckon. I mean, I think it will go down in history because of the queef. I think it will be one of those matches that people like, it'll be worth the pay-per-view money to watch simply for the shouting vagina queef. I think is definitely worth the price of entry.
Yeah.
Well, this is very unlike you, Stoney. You seem to have gone for the Tau over Slaaneshi demons. Are you picking up any bad habits out there in the future?
Hey, all I can say is, when in Rome, bang a towel.
Well, that's settled then. See you later, Stoney. Good luck with Gilliman.
Oh yeah, bye.
Bye.
Whoa, whoa.
Well, I hope you've had time to towel down, sports fans, wipe off some of that sweat and get an energy drink, because we're back for round 2 of the Gods World Cup. Matt, I believe you've got the draws. Who have we got first?
So first up, we got the Emperor versus the Deceiver.
Oh, this is like almost a repeat of the first round, right? Because we had Emperor versus Zeech, Trixie, Lord of Change.
Oh God, I mean,
but the Deceiver is almost. We've kind of said, as we talked about before, that the Catan are almost more powerful in the real world than the Chaos God's ability to fight. But we just said that the Nightbringer wouldn't do well because he'd just kill everyone. But I feel like of the Catan that are able to convert the masses, the Deceiver would be very good at that. I mean, he literally has converted an entire race.
But the Emperor has, as you said about the Master of Mankind book, where the Emperor actually does enslave a Catan. He captures a
only
Catan.
A shard.
Is it only a shard? Yeah, of course it is. Yeah.
Only a shard, and he struggles with that.
Yeah, I don't think he could beat the Deceiver.
I don't think so too. If they come up against each other in real life, I think the Deceiver wins. Now the question is whether we think the Emperor is as powerful in the Immaterium as the Chaos Gods, because that's the only thing that allowed the Chaos Gods to stand against.
Yes, that's true. In all the conversations where we've discussed the Emperor on the podcast before, I've always expressed my belief that he is as powerful in the warp as
potentially the Dark
Chaos
King
Gods.
for those
The
that
Dark.
are reading End and the Death,
Yeah.
but potentially not. It could be anyone. We don't know at this stage.
Yeah, and the fifth Chaos God, or the Chaos God of War, or
But he still, as far as we're aware, requires a functioning body.
Yeah.
And I think if the Deceiver wanted to wipe out Terra, he would. There's no way the Emperor's waking up, getting off that chair and leaving Terra.
Yeah, I think let's put the Deceiver through.
Deceiver goes through. This is gods. If you're listening to this and you love the Emperor and you're screaming for the Imperium, this is god level we're talking about. And unless we can prove the Emperor is a god, if we do this again next year and Dabnett has revealed that he is a full entity, this might go different.
I mean, I do think I do believe that he's a god, but the Emperor's power is also mostly from the Imperium.
Yeah.
So yeah, whereas the Deceiver is just insanely powerful. I think in 40k the Emperor could be more powerful in the warp, because that's kind of where he exists now.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what I mean.
Yeah,
we don't know that he's able to survive without a body.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
Deceiver goes through. Emperor is out.
This next one's good.
Okay. Who have we got?
It's Pinky against Green Boy. It's Slanesh versus Gaz.
I mean, it's sad that Gaz has now had to go through because Gork and Mork aren't interested in being part of our World Cup. They've sent the Prophet forwards. I'm sure Gaz has crumped a lot of Keepers of Secrets in his time, but the best this goes for Gaz is that he turns purple and joins Slanesh.
Yeah. I think Slanesh. Well, Slanesh is a god. Gazgel isn't a god.
That's true. I'd like to hope that whilst they're fighting, though, he brings down the foot of Mork or the foot of Gork, whatever that rule was that we used to use. You had to get the foot template out.
Yeah.
The god came down and stomped. But I'm sorry, Gaz, you're out. It's not the orcs' fault that your gods didn't want to pay attention, but that's just how orcs go. Slanesh through.
So this one we've got. This is a weird bit of fluke. So this is another one with a Chaos God. So we've got Nurgle versus Kane.
Ooh, good matchup. Very different. We're saying that Kane is a Chaos level god.
I think, as we said when we spoke about Nurgle, that Nurgle is
so powerful.
So powerful. I mean,
but
everywhere.
Part of Nurgle's power relies on something being alive. And is Kane really alive?
Yeah, but
if it was Nurgle versus the Emperor, that would have been really easy because it's just like, well, yeah, the Emperor's going
to. But I don't know, because Nurgle, if Kane isn't alive, then one viewpoint that might weaken Nurgle's ability to fight him. But Nurgle is still essentially the power of entropy in the galaxy, in the universe, and his power. I mean, it's just a force of nature.
The way it's turning out is we've got them all quite similar level, because we know that Kane's beaten a Catan, but we've also said Catan are stronger than Chaos Gods in reality. But I think we're thinking too much about fighting again. I think Nurgle is far better at converting a galaxy to it.
Oh yeah,
Kane can only be fighting in so many places at once, whilst everything slowly rots to Nurgle.
Yeah. Nurgle would. Yeah, Nurgle.
Good old
Nurgle
chuckle as their guts fall out. So
yeah.
Maybe in 1-to-1 battle, Kane might take it with some crazy fighting skills. But if we're talking galactic control, it's got to be the Papa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Papa takes it. So
who have we got?
Void Dragon against Khorne.
This one's tough because I see when I look down and I see Nurgle, I think how Nurgle can bring a galaxy to heel. Like I get how Nurgle influences people, influences planets, has control in a way that I can't see Khorne doing quite as well.
Yeah, it's really.
But then the Catan, we don't know. Beyond the Deceiver, we don't know anything about their ability to actually bring races or people or populations to heal.
Yeah,
maybe for this we just ignore the galactic control aspect because they'll both be pretty shit here, and it's a straight up fight.
Khorne is probably the greatest martial chaos god. His martial prowess.
He's got no tactics.
No,
he's got no tactics.
I disagree with that. Man, why has he got no tactics?
The state of Angron, he's got no tactics. Khan has to literally teleport Angron off a ship before he destroys the entire ship.
But there you go. But Angron isn't Khorne, and Khan is a believer of Khorne, and he has tactics.
But if you think about the Siege of Terror,
Angron has got
Khorne alone.
Blame the butcher's nails.
The void field. You're saying there's some sneaky.
But that's a legion.
That's
different. I don't know.
The bloodletters, I suppose, are kind of like sneaky and stuff. Like the Herald of Khorne seems to have a bit of personality. I guess there are some demons, but like you think about the big demons, a bloodthirster's just power, pure power. And if we're talking pure power in a fight, I don't think you get more pure than the Void Dragon's power. He's channeling literal stars.
Yeah, well, let's put the Void Dragon through.
Okay.
So
that's a tight one, though. I could easily have gone either way there. Void Dragon goes through. Well, that's right, folks. You're here for the semi-finals, and we have an absolute doozy for you. We've got in one semi-final a Chaos God versus a Star God, and in another a Chaos God for a Star God. Matt, who we got up first?
So first one, we got Slaanesh versus the Deceiver.
Okay.
Oh, I mean, this is
good. I think.
I don't know. Are we overpowering the C'tans too much? Because my initial thought is that Slaanesh wouldn't be powerful enough.
Are definitely weaker in aspects. I think just like Khorne was unlucky because he doesn't seem to have the presence that the other ones do. But Slaanesh is very, very good at making people fall to Slaanesh.
Yeah.
And the Deceiver's very good at tricking people. We've got a guy that tricked an entire race to give up their souls, and we've got a guy/gal who literally eats the souls of an entire race who brought her into existence. So this is a very similar kind of tale. Slaanesh is the outcome of a race dying, and the Deceiver is the cause of a race dying. Also, Slaanesh is so good fighting, and it is sneaky to an extent, not the Deceiver's extent. This one's too difficult to call.
Should we talk about the other one briefly?
Yeah, let's see how the other one goes and come back to it. So what's going on Stade de France?
So we've got Nurgle against the Void Dragon.
Okay, because these are happening simultaneously, presumably, these games. Nurgle versus the Void Dragon. See, I find this one much easier because the Void Dragon is power, but I have no evidence for control, whereas Nurgle is straight up power and control.
Yeah.
It controls everything.
It's just
alive.
there. Everywhere.
But then you could argue the Void Dragon isn't alive. You're in control of like metal and machinery and just energy. That doesn't give a shit about Nurgle, but it does because Nurgle is rust and corrosion.
Everything
Nurgle succumbs to Nurgle. That's Nurgle. It's straight up Nurgle.
Yeah. That power of entropy just is so. It's just Nurgle is just a force of nature.
Yeah.
That even the C'tan gods just aren't equal to.
Right. Well, he throws a load of lightning bolts at him, but you can't lightning bolts are energy and they succumb to entropy. So yeah. At the end of the day, the Void Dragon's gonna have to eat every last sun, and when every last sun is gone, he's gonna decay just like everything else.
Yeah.
Nurgle goes through,
laughing as he goes through.
But that doesn't help us with what's going on the other pitch. It's gone to penalties. Even the keepers are having to take one. It's getting that tight. Let's imagine just the soul system in 40k. Slaanesh and the Deceiver come into the soul system. How does it play out?
I mean, my money would be on Slaanesh in that scenario because
the ficklency of humanity.
Yeah.
Just being like, I want
wants all the
tits and pussy, and I don't care what the price is. I've been stuck here in this hole. I've been mining, hoping for a scrap of Blackstone my entire life, and you've offered me some tits.
Yeah.
I'm in. Who's this jester-looking golden boy?
I really want a weird crab claw on my hand, please. That's what I really want.
Yeah. We give people the internet and they look at porn.
Ah, yes, exactly. Yeah,
that's it. I think you're right. I think you've hit the nail on the head. People are fickle. They don't need the deceiver's level of deception. They just need to be like, well, I'll give you everything you want.
The deceiver would come in with a big grand plan.
Yeah.
And everyone would just be on Pornhub.
He's got the whiteboard out. He's like drawing out graphs. He's got the stock exchange, how he's going to infiltrate currency, how he's got Bitcoin under his thumb. And then Slaanesh just comes in and draws a big old dick on the board. And gives everyone a thumbs up.
Yeah, and everyone's better off for it.
Well, that gives us our final, Matthew.
This is mad.
That went... It's gone pretty similar to what I might have expected. Nice to see the Catans doing well, because we never really get to talk about the kind of Xenos gods, and interesting to learn about the Eldar, I think. But when you say Warhammer 40k gods, there's only really 4 that people immediately think of.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and we've got
the core 4.
2 of them in the final.
Nurgle against Slaanesh. This is really interesting because it's sort of Slaanesh is like the enjoyment of life, and Nurgle is life and death. Like the beginning, Nurgle is the bookmark to life, if that makes any sense.
It's almost it's a chicken and the egg situation. This, isn't it? Because the decay feeds pain, but you can't have pain without life. So what comes first?
Well, we know in the lore that Nurgle came first.
And maybe if we're being super serious about that, that's because life exists before emotion.
Yeah.
There is decay in everything.
And we've said in his last round when he beat the Deceiver that at the end, death, change, entropy comes for everyone.
Yeah.
And it will come for Slaanesh.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because that's a power that Nurgle has, and maybe Tzeentch to an extent, is that like decay and change aren't emotions. Slaanesh and Khorne require emotion.
Yeah.
Slaanesh is pain, pleasure, Khorne is anger. Whereas Nurgle doesn't need the beings to be conscious. It just needs them to be able to die.
Yeah.
So I think we've got to go Nurgle. Though the fight, the one-on-one aspect of it is hilarious. Just a load of fatties being like run rings around them by loads of slinky Slaanesh and fishnets with big claws. Though you do get those kind of you do get that aspect of Slaanesh that is like gluttony and greed, don't you? There's that planet that Stoney always talks about. It's like the big fat boy planet. It's just like,
but that leads to Nurgle. Yeah.
But he's rotting on the inside. That's for sure. Those guts on that planet.
And you know, if those demon hunts running rings around the big Nurgle people, those chains or whatever they're tying them up with will just sort of go through their rotting limbs as they laugh and carry on the other side. You can't hold back the force of Nurgle.
Of all of the matches, I think this would be the most pleasurable to watch because both sides are going to be having a laugh, aren't they?
Yeah.
Like when you're watching something, you want everyone to be enjoying themselves. They're going to be loving it as they slice chunks of fat off, and the fatties are going to be loving having chunks of fat sliced off them. You know, but it's fine because it's going to grow back, or every chunk that gets sliced off is going to become a Nurgling. It's just going to be a wild, joyous ride of watching 2 gods who love doing what they do, having a great time.
And because Nurgle's like the happy god.
Yeah. It's
so
funny
happy
because
final.
when you think of their champions, if this was Fulgrim versus Mortarion, that would be really boring to watch. No one wants to watch moany old Mortarion just getting the piss taken out of him by Fulgrim for an hour.
Yeah.
I want Big Papa. I want Keeper of Secrets versus Great Unclean One. That's how I'm imagining this. And everyone's having a lovely time. But at the end of the day, entropy comes for us all.
Yeah. And it's coming for Slaanesh. She loses.
And the crowd goes wild as Nurgle takes the Royal Cup, lifts it up in his gooey tentacles, swallows it, shits it out, and then licks all the poo off, and then spits it into
While
his cauldron
laughing.
and makes a new disease and feeds it to that other god.
That's fucking bobbins, that.
Did you come across the Tau God stuff when you were looking at this?
No. I just looked at our list. I didn't look at anything different.
Right, okay. There are more Eldar gods as well.
Yeah.
I thought I'd have a look. Did the Tau have a god? And there's this stuff out there that's all really new called the goddess Tauva. It's got 2 apostrophes in the spelling there, which
right.
You know it's super Tau. And apparently this is a warp entity that's recently been created and is the personification of the belief in the greater good within the warp by the psychically inclined Tau auxiliaries. So because Tau aren't connected to the warp,
to the humans,
when humans join the Tau, their belief in goodness is kind of causing a roiling in the warp to have this kind of good god, which taken to the extremes, would kind of combat some of the other gods, because there isn't a current god. I guess Isha's the only thing we've mentioned that is kind of pure of heart with no negativity, to have a kind of glowing, hopeful, greater goodness god.
That idea, that just makes sense. You kind of, if you have auxiliaries in the Tau like they do, including humans, then that makes sense that has an impact in the warp, because it's what's written about the human population within the Imperium. So you kind of you can't have kind of one and not the other. So that kind of makes sense. I wonder, that's quite an interesting idea. I wonder if they'll ever do anything with that.
Or it turns out all this time the ethereals, maybe Farsight comes in and fucks up the ethereals, and then suddenly the suppression of Tau warp connection is gone, and this god grows in the warp. It's an interesting thing that might happen. I don't think it's very 40k. It's very I don't know. It's very Japanese comic book is what it is.
But the just the rumors of it though are quite interesting. Like the moment, not to do anything, just to kind of hint at it would be, for actually Games Workshop to actually hint at it would be interesting.
I think the bits I was reading said that this goddess has appeared to Shadow Sun and said, "I am the communality of species. I am destiny." Set against
so it's like
the
a
cosmos.
Star Trek god.
Yeah. Set against the cosmos, I am nothing, it is true. Though even a seed cast to the wind may flourish. If you will let me, child of hope. I simply wish to exist, child. And that's from a Shadow Sun book called The Patient Hunter.
So that's in a Black Library
Phil
book.
Kelly. Yeah, it's a Phil Kelly book set in 40k.
When was that?
2022. So this is super new stuff. Of course, it could be any of the Chaos gods tricking the Tau. This could be the fall of the Tau, to Chaos potentially. This could be Tzeentch trying to get his fingers in the Tau pie.
I think that makes it makes total sense. It makes total sense to have they welcome in their auxiliaries for various reasons that we've discussed in previous episodes. But I think that's quite. I'm down for this idea. Yeah, I'm totally on board for this idea.
It's the missing aspect to godhood from 40k.
Yeah,
which is the communist god.
Yeah,
it's the Mao to the point of godhood idea that isn't really represented by anything else in 40k.
Yeah, maybe even that could be a Chaos god.
Anyway, plenty to think about there. Real cutting edge stuff here on the Large Blast podcast.
Rolling in my 6-4.
All right, boys, it's me from the future. I've been returned. I've run off quickly from my training to come and do the Lords of Law quiz. Will you let me in? I'm outside the flat. I'm buzzing on the bell.
I suppose so, Matt. We need to do a Lords of Law this week, so...
Yeah, let him in.
All right, okay. Stoney, how's it going?
Haha, freeze, weaklings. Only joking. It's me, Stoney, your old buddy from the future. Don't mind the old Space Marine get up. I'll sit here on the sofa. Let's do a Lords of Law quiz, shall we?
Absolutely. Okay, I've got a Lords of Lore quiz for you. And hopefully you haven't seen this because I've lifted it from an online group, but I didn't share it with you. I'm going to tell you who or what is in a thumbnail from Warhammer Pornhub. And I want you to tell me what the pornography category is that thumbnail represents.
As someone that's been living in the 41st millennium for the last couple of days, I reckon I've become most acquainted with their Pornhub. So I'm ready to go. Great.
Okay, well, we'll start you off with the first one. Nice, easy one to get you started. So this thumbnail contains Inquisitor Greyfax and Saint Celestine.
Lesbian.
Well done, Matt. Gets a point straight out the gate. Okay, next one is a picture of Jagatai Khan.
Asian.
I don't know what this show's about, whether this is your Warhammer knowledge or your porn knowledge, Matt, but it is Asian. Okay, next one. You've been away too long, Stoney.
I'm sorry, I thought there was more imagination put into these answers. I'm sorry, I was thinking too much about it. Okay, no, I'm ready.
You've been away too long. The next one is Uriel Vecht.
Bondage.
Bondage, I'll accept. BDSM.
Okay, yeah. That's the Dark Eldar lady. Isn't it?
Of course. I remember him.
The Emperor.
Oh, daddy porn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's 3-1 to you, Matt. Next one, thumbnail is Lehman Russ.
Viking porn. Bestiality. No. Dog fucking.
No.
Not fucking wolves because they're not on your planet.
You that's a little bit too far for Pornhub.
Swedish.
Oh.
No. We've discussed it a lot on the podcast.
Furries.
He's catching up. 3-2 to Matt. It's a picture of Malkador the Sigillite.
Librarians.
No.
Secretary porn.
Old men.
Oh, it's along those lines, but it wouldn't say that.
Oh, gilf.
Mature.
Mature. Would that still be MILF? It would just be Malfador I'd like to fuck. Malkador I'd like to fuck.
Yeah. Malkador.
It's Vulcan. Lord Vulcan.
Oh,
BBW.
Ebony.
Correct. Not BBW, but Ebony. Yeah. Okay, and then finally, this image contains Ivrain and Gilliman for 1,000,000 points.
Oh, stepsister. Babysitter.
No, it's trans.
No, it's not trans.
Interracial.
Yeah.
Get it back in there. I'll tell everybody in the future you said hi. I've got to go. Woo!